In part one of this series of classes, we spoke about the fact that the events of today are Achrisa Yamin type of events, meaning that whatever is going today is not just another past event in history, even though it may be significant for its own reasons, but we've established that based upon specific sources, that we can look at these events as being some of the final events necessary to cross that threshold from our period of time into what we call Yemos HaMashiach, or the Messianic era. So this session deals with a different question. The question is that even if the events of today are Achris Yamim type events, and we're close to the end, we're close to the end of history as we know it, still, why do I have to get involved? Why must I do something to facilitate the Geulah process and mitigate the effect of AntiSemitism and make the situation better than it actually is? Why do I have to get involved? Why can't I just let things just go the way they have to go? And especially since, thank God, life is pretty good for a lot of people today, even given the financial situation today, even given the politics today, many people find this time of exile to be relatively pleasant still. Okay, it's better maybe perhaps from 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 years ago, but still it's not as bad as one might think, so therefore perhaps Mashiach would be more of an inconvenience than he would be a help, right? So, we can wait, So the Gemara says, it says basically based upon one pasuk, one verse in Yeshaya that speaks about the redemption process, about the end of history, and God makes a promise. And in that verse he mentions that he's going to bring about the conclusion of history, Achishana Bi'ita. And even though that phrase can be read as one phrase, right? Achishana Bi'ita, and that's the way we read it, and then we understand exactly what it means on a pshat level. The Gemara's got a problem. The Gemara questions and says, wait a second, really, if you analyze, it seems to be that Achishana and Bita kind of like a contradictory. Achishana means I will hasten it. I will hasten the redemption. And Bita means it's going to come at its last possible moment. So, which is it? Early, and we have to anticipate, as the Yud Gimel Ikari mentioned, the 13 principles of faith, that we have to anticipate the Mashiach can come any day, and he can, any moment, right? So what do you mean be taught the last possible moment? So the Gemara says, well, we can explain that. Zacha, achishena, lo zacha, bi'ita. If the Jewish people merited, whatever that means, we'll have to see what that means in the end, but if the Jewish people merited, they can hasten the redemption and God will bring it early. Mashiach will come early and Bezrat Hashem will get out of this jam much more peacefully and we'll transition from this stage of history to Yemos HaMashiach in a much more peaceful manner. If not, lo zach, says the Gemara, you're going to have to wait to the end. You have to wait to the end. Okay, so for some people, they don't want to wait to the end. Personally, I don't want to wait to the end, but everyone's got their reasons and feel differently. And some people will say, I'll wait, I can handle that. The Gemara says, well, maybe you won't want to, because there's a second half to the story over here. We have another contradiction, says the Gemara. One pasuk from Zechariah says the Mashiach will come riding on a cloud in a chubadik way, a very honorable, spectacular way that even a Hollywood can't match. And the other pasuk from Daniel says he'll come lowly riding on a donkey, and that's not a pleasant thing. You can assume if he's lowly riding on a donkey, it's because based on the generations lowly riding on a donkey, so to speak, and he's coming based upon. So Mashiach is a reflection of where we're holding. So if he's coming that way, it's reflecting that we're lowly holding, on such a level. And that's not good, especially since the Zohar and the Maharal point out that every nation has an animal that represents its traits. For whatever reason, good, bad, negative, it doesn't make a difference. But the animal that represented Egypt, and therefore, for that matter, Bnei Yishmael perhaps, is the chamor, the donkey. There's a specific reason for that. And we certainly are holding right now in Galus Yishmael. Galus Edom, for the most part, seems to have come to an end. It's not over completely. Obviously, Edom is there, but after the Holocaust, after Yamach Shmo Hitler and his people were killed, and there's always going to be evil people in history, but the biggest threat to the Jewish people today and to world peace today is clearly the Islamic people, no matter what they tell you otherwise. And what the leftists tell you otherwise. That's the ones who are threatening with Sharia law and their way of thinking and their way of living and imposing upon the entire world, and their anti-Semitism is horrific, and the pressure they put on Edom to try to undermine us is also incredible, but it's all Yishmael. It's all coming from Yishmael. So that, we may be exactly what the Gemara is saying right now. So Gemara is saying that don't think you can wait, because history has shown that even though the Jewish people enjoyed golden eras amongst the Gentile world, and we've had this is not new. We've had quite a few of them. This is not a new thing. Maybe the amounts of money we've made, the technology is different, and the level of acceptance may be higher than in past times because the Catholic Church had a lot of control over the world until more recent times. That doesn't make a difference. A golden era, it's a golden era, it's a golden era. And exile is exile, because exile exists for reasons not simply because the Jewish people are forced out, it's done because they lost the battle, they lost the war, but it's a divine thing, as is anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is not racism, that's for sure. Because racism is based upon differences. It could be physical differences, it could be ideological differences, but the differences are pronounced. And as long as they're pronounced, it can generate hatred. But a Jew can abandon his physical differences to the point he may even have an operation, but he may look exactly like the people he's living amongst. Exactly. And he will abandon his ideological differences and even go so far as to support the Western world's way of thinking. As we see today, there are many Jews who have jumped on the bandwagon of anti-Israel sentiment and forcing the issue against our own good. And nevertheless, somehow anti-Semitism finds us. Somehow in places where the Jews were the least overt, the Jews were the least conspicuous, anti-Semitism was the worst. Not racism. Racism and anti-Semitism are two different levels of hatred, and they emanate from seemingly for different reasons. And the Jew has to be aware of that. Much to do with the whole concept of exile. But the Gemara is telling you very clearly. It's telling you what Rav Noach Weinberg Tzitzal, the founder and past Rosh HaShavua of Torah, told us for years and years and years, that when it comes to Jewish history, you have to always keep in mind it's either program or pogrom. That was his genius. He always had a way of taking important and complicated concepts and putting them into a soundbite that was not only short but very real and to the point and moved you. And this particular idea of program or pogrom is genius, because in it is all of Jewish history from the beginning until Mashiach comes. And not only is it, but there's also other concepts embedded in it. We'll see in a second. But program or pogrom means if the Jewish people do not make the initiative to try and solve the crisis of the Jewish people, and by the way the world as well, then God will do it himself. Heaven will solve those crises, and the way that it does it usually is not pleasant, as we've seen historically. We have been the victims of what happens, or we have been the proof of what happens when we don't live by program or pogrom. If we we abandon the idea of program, then we don't survive the pogroms. They eventually come after us. But embedded in this idea is another concept, which is also very important. Because the person can say, fine, I buy it, I hear it. The events today are unbelievable. I hear the proofs, certainly worth paying attention to and taking seriously and not walking away from. I hear the importance of taking the initiative. I'm with you the whole way. There's only one problem. There are about 12 million Jews in the world today. Of the 12 million Jews, maybe 10 million have no connection to the concept of Torah and redemption and initiatives and program and pogrom. They're just not in the picture. What am I supposed to do with them? Second of all, even the ones who do understand the concept and history and believe in Torah, mitzvahs, and all these ideas, they're not so easy to convince either. It's like, for me, one of us and 10 of us, even in a whole organization, what do you do? What are you supposed to do? So program or pogrom also implies the words of the Mishnah, which says it's not for you to complete the job, but neither are you free to walk away from it, to abandon it. Take the initiative, make the initiative move. Habala teher, Messiah is so, says the Gemara. You come to purify yourself, right? Shemaim will help you. They'll help you tremendously. And every effort you make to become better, spiritual, to improve the world, to be a partner with God in his masterpiece of creation, to make a better place, God will help you out. That's a promise. How much will he help you out? Says the Mishnah. Oh, you can't begin to imagine how much he's going to help you out. You open a pinhole and we'll drive a wagon through it, not a microscopic wagon, a little small one that gets through there, the little small hole, but a big, huge, real-life wagon will go through that little pinhole. We're not talking a big, huge pinhole either. We're talking about a regular, small, little pinhole, big, huge wagon. How will God do that? How did God make creation? How did God split the sea? How did God bring life every day to a lump of flesh? And how does anything work? He deals with things like that. But the Gra says that, this concept of midah keneged midah, measure for measure, wonderful concept. Well, in general, it's kind of a scary concept because midah keneged midah, for the most part, people understand to mean that if you do a specific sin, God's going to punish you with that, whatever you did the sin in, so you can learn from your mistake. You speak less, you bite your tongue. In the old days, you got saras because of this reason. But the punishment is meant to fit the crime, and exactly. So you can first of all rectify the mistake you've done. You can pay the price for having made that mistake, and you can learn a lesson for the future. But the Gra says it also works by mitzvahs too. Donors will tell you, "I will give you $5,000 if you will raise $5,000 from other donors." Right? I will give you $10,000. Whatever you raise, I'll match that. Matching donations. Right? So it turns out, by mitzvahs, it works the same way. God says, if you will raise 20% effort to do a mitzvah, I'll match your 20% effort with 20% siyata d'shmaya, heavenly help. You put in 40%, I'll give you 40%. 80%? 80%. You'll accomplish a lot more with my help, but it's going to be based upon what you yourself achieve. 1-to-1 ratio, for the most part. Except in one mitzvah, says the Gra. In one particular mitzvah, apparently, not only is the concept of midah keneged midah not exact, it's beyond exact. You put in one effort, God says, I'll match it 1,000 times over. You put in maybe one, I'll put it 100,000 times over. It doesn't make a difference. Whatever I decide is going to match it, but you start the process. What's that mitzvah? Where it's way out of proportion. Says the Gra, that's the mitzvah of kibbutz galus. The mitzvah of the ingathering of the exiles from around the world to Eretz Yisrael. In other words, being involved in the redemption process. Says the Vilna Gaon, it's way more than midah keneged midah. Hashem says, if you will make the effort, you'll take the time, you'll take the initiative to make Achishena a reality, to be zoiche, right? To see what that means in the next few sessions, Hashem, to be zoiche, right? Because we thought we were being zoiche. We thought we were doing meritorious things. We're doing lots of meritorious things, and we're still waiting. For what? What has to change? But whatever has to change, you do that thing, God says, I will match it many times over, and you will be successful beyond your wildest dreams. Maybe perhaps your effort would only have changed the world this much, but I will make that change this big, or even bigger, right? Whatever the case may be, you can rely upon HaKadosh Baruch Hu to maximize our effort and to magnify the things we're supposed to achieve. So, if we're holding right now, Achus Yamim Tabib events, and the Jewish people and anti-Semitism is increasing, and it's becoming more perilous to be a Jew in this world today, as the Islamic world also is increasing in size and threatening the sanity and the security of the nations of the world. And where's Mashiach? We need him now more than ever before. Where is he? Have to get involved. Have to take the initiative. We got to do something to create a program of any sort, and through that, B'ezras Hashem, be zeicher to avoid the